These on?
They could hear us earlier.
Good thing.
Lord's Prayer.
Ready, Mark?
Here we go. I call this meeting of the Allen Independent School District to order. Let the record show that the quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Trustee Winstrom, you do the invocation.
Lord, please be with us today as we come together to make decisions for our students and our staff. Please also bless all of our first responders and help with the medical crisis to pass so that we can get back to school and teaching and what we are here to do. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
So we have no open forums tonight, so we'll move into the presentations. Carol?
Okay, so board, tonight we have an update from our TERS, the Reinvestment Zone number 2, and we have Miss Sue Darcy here this evening to present.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Mr. President, trustees, Madam Superintendent, thank you for having me this evening. It's been a few years since we came and gave you in person the annual report verbally. For the first 15 years or so of the zone, we came every year. And then after a while, people kind of got tired of seeing us, and Fort Bend County asked us not to come back every year. If they wanted to see us, they would ask for us. So we asked everybody, do y'all want to continue to see us? And after 15 years or so, it had gotten kind of rote and routine, and they said, no, you don't really need to come, just send us the report. And so, but over the years, there are new people who weren't around for those 15 years, so we at the TERS were kind of tickled pink that y'all asked us to come back, and we're interested enough to get a verbal update. So I'm pleased to be here tonight. I think that you all have been provided a copy of the written report, and that report is generated as a result of the requirements of Chapter 311 of the Texas Tax Code. And so the format and the content is not something that we have creatively arrived at on our own. It's something that the statute tells us that we have to report. And it is to put all the participants who participate in the TERS on notice of the status from year to year of the performance of the zone, as well as to tell the participating jurisdictions what they are getting for the money that they are participating with in the zone, and how is the zone, again, performing year over year. Let me just start, if you don't mind, by going through my notes so that I'm sure I cover every topic, and then I'm perfectly happy to answer any questions you may have about how TERS's work or anything you might have specifically to ask about Shadow Creek Ranch. On page, the majority of the content that is really meaningful from year to year is contained in basically the charts and the tables that are in the annual report. Those are the things that really change year to year, because they contain the impact of the revenue coming in and the impact of the revenue going out. But on page 5, it's worthy to note that we have documented this year that the TERS plan amendment, which was adopted in 1998, the plan amendment was amended for the 4th time in 20 years to allow for some projects that were in the original plan to be updated with regards to their actual cost. The TERS plan contemplated that over a long period of time, that a $1998, if it was an improvement constructed in 2012, 2015, or 2020, was not going to be that same dollar. So there were a number of mechanisms by which the dollar value of improvements could be grown. One of those was just the pure construction cost, not consumer price index, but the engineering news record is what the index was used. There also was contemplated that there would be changes perhaps in the magnitude of certain improvements. They had to be bigger. We didn't contemplate that they would be as large as they needed to be to give the full service load that was demanded by the success of the project. So in the Fourth Amendment, we had to amend that in order to bring the library size and the magnitude of the library into a budget that would accommodate the service provision that's needed there. If you'll recall, both the county and the city are participating in staffing and filling the library with books, et cetera. But the construction of the building itself, originally that was contemplated to be just a front in another shopping center or something. Well, it needs to be, there are so many people that it is under such demand out there that it now needs to be a freestanding building. So that was the purpose of the plan amendment, was to bring those projects in an amended state forward. On page 7, you'll see the participation rates of all the jurisdictions that participate. The City of Pearland, Brazoria County, Fort Bend County, and Alvin ISD. And you'll see on that chart that Alvin ISD actually participates at 100% of your tax rate. And you get rebated, so you send 100% over to the TERS, and the TERS rebates you 75% of that. And with regards to your funding, that was the mechanism by which, back in 1998, you all were able to keep 100% of the revenue that was going to be generated in the TERS in Alvin ISD, as opposed to being at risk for that money to go to the Robin Hood Fund. So that was the reason that was structured that way. It was specifically to enhance the impact that participating in the TERS would have on the district. On page 8, Table B lists what's called the captured appraised value. And the captured appraised value is defined as the difference between the base year value, which is the year in which the TERS was created, and the value in any given year of growth. So in 1998, your base year value in Shadow Creek was $4,143,160. You'll see in Table B that in 2018, that value had grown to $1,928,715,832. So that is, I can't off the top of my head really calculate how many thousands of times of an increase that is, but it's certainly significant. Also on page 8, Table C lists the tax increment generated, and tax increment is the revenue, the money that comes in based upon that captured appraised value. So the captured appraised value times the tax rate for any given year generates the tax increment. And the 25% that AISD actually contributes to the TERS in 2018 totaled $6,646,434. In addition, you all also contribute from your supplemental payment. The Texas Education Agency supplemental payment comes in, and in that category that is shown in Table C as other revenue, of that other revenue, $1,851,060 was actually the money attributable to your TEA payment. So in total, you contributed more than $8 million to the TERS in 2018. And we'll get to your questions that y'all sent us in a minute here, because we know you're wondering, well, if you got that much, how much did we get? On page 10 and 11, Table D is the approved TERS budget. And this budget has been running and being updated for 20 years now. This is the 20th annual report, as I might have mentioned earlier. And it shows the modifications that were added as a result of the fourth plan amendment. And the most right-hand column all the way over will show the resulting TERS amended amounts. So as you see from going from the most left-hand column, with every TERS amendment, there were projects and or revenue amounts that were adjusted and or added. With the notice to all the participating jurisdictions, everyone agreed that these were things that needed to be done, and some of them fell in the purview of the interlocal agreements already, and there was no action needed on your part. On page 12, it documents the outstanding bonds that have been issued on behalf of the TERS and the participating jurisdictions for all of the outstanding bonds that are in in effect today. There have been some bonds that have been paid off that were issued earlier, but the statute requires that we say what is outstanding today, and that is the list of those. In 2018, new bonds were issued in the amount of $5,835,000, so that was a new debt issue that was done for this annual report. And Table 13 documents what we call LFAs, and that stands for Letter Finance Agreements. And the letter finance agreements are the methods by which originally the developer, since then other developers, the city, the county, anyone who has a project that they believe is TERS eligible, brings forward a project description, a project cost for that project, and they submit it to the TERS. The TERS then reviews it for applicability to the project plan, which is what we have to go by. So it's reviewed by the city's council, it is reviewed by the TERS council, it's reviewed by the TERS engineer, it's reviewed by us as administrators, all to opine as to the applicability and eligibility of that particular project as a TERS project. And so as those LFAs come forward, they're approved by the board. Then the developer goes and constructs that project. They come back, and the LFA caps the price. Once the LFA is approved, that project is set. If it runs over, if their cost overruns, the developer eats it. If it's less than that, we only pay the lesser amount. So the TERS is never out for any more than the LFA agreed upon. So with the bond issue that was issued, the $5,835,000, we were able to retire and pay in full some of those outstanding letter finance agreements. So in 2018, letter finance agreements 08-05-001, 08-05-002, 10-06-001, 10-06-002 were all fully paid, and you'll see that some of that some of those LFAs are for Broadway. The widening and esplanating of Broadway on the west side of 288 was a big project. The city pre-funded that project and has waited to get repaid for that for several years. So this sometimes the developers have waited many years to get repaid. In fact, Gary Cook, whom some of you might have remembered seeing coming to your many meetings over the years, finally was repaid his final payment last year out of this bond issue as well. So he started putting money into the TERS in 1999, and he finally got paid off for the work that he did in 2020. And I'm hoping that many of you will remember with that 3,500 acres out there was a vacant large parcel. I read your bios on your website today, and I know that many of you grew up in this area and went to school in this area, so I'm hoping you can remember and appreciate all that that particular TERS has done, and it's been an exemplary public-private partnership, and is still going strong today in that regard. So we have about 8 years left on the zone. And I'll be happy to come back anytime and speak to you. We provided you all with written answers to the questions we were asked. I'm happy to go over those, or if you all have other questions, if you would like me to read the answers, or if those are sufficient for you to if you're satisfied with that, with the written answers, we can skip that part, and because I know you'd like to get on with your meeting.
If I have questions or...
Anybody have any questions?
Wait,
One thing I would like
Yes,
to
I have a
mention.
question.
Julie
Oh.
has a question. Go ahead, Julie.
Oh, okay, you said that the payment from the state, let me go back up to the chart, was it 1.6 million? How is that distributed back to us?
That is considered part of your 25% contribution to the zone. That does not come back to you. That is net of the 75% that you keep. That's part of your 25%. That's part of your 25% contribution to the zone. That's net of the 75% that you keep.
Okay,
So that 1.85 million is the 25% of the TEA payment, and that goes to the zone.
Julie, we get that total amount from the state. We have to apply for that one time a year. And the reason for that supplement is because when, in 2006, the state had a compression much like they did in House Bill 3. And for a couple of years, we didn't get the total amount of the benefit of the TERS because they lowered our tax rate. And so the amount of funds we were collecting off that value in Shadow Creek was a lesser amount. And so our district and some other districts involved in TERS agreements were in preparation to have legal recourse about that loss of revenue because there was a contractual agreement. And so the state actually came through with that statutory supplement. And y'all may recall as House Bill 3 was getting ready to be passed on that day, I guess it was the day House Bill 3 was going to be passed, there were lots of phone calls with Ed Thompson's office and Bonna's office about making sure that statutory language would apply to this subsequent compression that happened with House Bill 3 and will continue. And thanks to the responsiveness of our legislators, that was factored in, that they ensured that the language from that law will factor. So we'll continue to receive that annually as we apply for it, and then we pass on 25% to the TERS. We don't give the 100% and they remit back because it's structured slightly different. We just give them the 25%.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome.
It may look a little strange that it shows up in other. We know that's a rather large amount to be in other, like miscellaneous, what is that number? The reason it's there is that we were unaware of that payment in 2014, 2015. And so when it got to be big enough that it was really significant and we were paid finally the money that you all were getting, we didn't know how long it was going to last. We didn't know if it was a one-time payment or just a few-year payment, and then it was up in the air again in the next legislative session, so we have just left it in other. But I think now if there's a guarantee that you all feel fortified, if you will, that it's going to be an ongoing payment, we will certainly break it out in the future annual report, so it clearly shows that it is your 25%.
We feel confident based on what our legislators have told us. We'll feel more confident once the funds have been received this year past House Bill 3.
Okay. We'll make every effort to be sure that it's appropriately represented and shows up as a ISD increment. Thank you for the question.
Any other
I
questions?
have another question, if you don't mind. Yep.
Go ahead.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said there were 8 years left on the TERS, on the agreement. In regards to the letter finance agreements, at what point does the TERS discontinue looking at new projects, looking into funding new projects? Like, is there a cutoff time?
There really is not a cutoff time per se. There will be, just by virtue of the way bonds work, probably next year or the following year will be the last year that we'll have enough time to issue bonds, because bonds become more expensive as they get shorter rather than less. But there could be someone come forward with a very quick, small project that could be funded in the very last year out of cash on hand, and everybody wants it done, and it's a good project, and it would bring value to something that's in the zone. Those could be done up until the very last year. I don't anticipate that there will be any, because there aren't any developers doing anything right now except in what's left in to be built out in the commercial area, and those I suspect won't be TERS eligible improvements in there, but there may be something that we just haven't foreseen yet. But there is no cutoff period. It's just really when the cash runs out. Now, with regards to the payment, the question that we were asked is, do you get your money? Will you get the proceeds that are left in the TERS account at the end of the life of the zone? And yes, you will. The debt service for the bonds will go till 2029. The revenue that's received on the 2028 value will be paid in January of 29. So that last payment in January of 29, or the last collections of the revenue in 29, will be the last of the revenue ever coming into the TERS. So at that point, the TERS account will be closed out. You'll get any pro rata, you'll get your pro rata share of revenue that is in excess of all the expenditures that are needed to be paid. You'll also get any interest that's accrued and been paid on those funds as they are invested now.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I I do want y'all to know I did bring my mask. I just didn't want to wear it in front of the mic.
Well, thank you for this update and this information.
My pleasure, and I'm happy to
Thank
come
you,
back.
Sue.
next year.
Thank you.
Just let me know.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
And good luck with all you all are dealing with. Thank you for all your service.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Pat is going to update us on Templeton demographics with the ever-changing,
Yes, thank you. Actually, Mark and John are going to pull up a presentation that was prepared by Templeton Demographics. Rocky Gardner has vocals with the presentation, and so I'd like them to cue that up, and we'll watch that at this point in time. And then I'll try to entertain any questions afterwards. Templeton is not represented here in person because of the COVID and travel issues that would be part of that. But if I can't answer the question, then I definitely will carry it back to Templeton and get an update. So can you guys roll that, please?
Good evening, President Humbert, members of the board, Superintendent Nelson. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you this evening, albeit a little bit different than we have in the past, right? This is our spring 2020 forecast report. And before I go too far into the report, I want to just a second about the impact of COVID-19. Just as demographics understand the importance of learning how this is going to impact each of our clients. And so our team has been working and doing some research and trying to figure out kind of what this might look like. And to this end, we are going to be developing a COVID-19 alternative projection that we hope to have available by mid-May for all of our clients. Again, this will coincide with your first quarter report, and it won't be a replacement to these projections. It'll just be an alternative to what 2020 might look like. You know, we know that traffic has decreased significantly. It's actually, I think, by law, it's gone away in most of the home builder sites, the model homes, they're not showing right now. Unemployment, this chart was put together 2 weeks ago, and there was 3.3 million unemployment claims. I think last week it was well over 6 million. So we're seeing the labor market really starting to tell the story. Unfortunately, in Houston, we're also challenged by the energy market. The price of a barrel of oil has dropped well below $30 now. We're seeing some energy companies begin to forecast, layoffs are going to happen. They think over 51% are expected to have employment decreases. 3 of the largest rig operators in Texas are cutting budgets and salaries of their executives and employees. So it's really kind of a double whammy for the Houston market right now. So with that in mind, we got to step back to November and December when we were putting the state data together. That some of the strongest economies in the country were in Dallas or in Houston. Houston was adding over 85,000 jobs a year. And 4 of the top 20 job markets were in Texas. So 4 of the top 20 in the country were in Texas. And, Alvin's unemployment rate for December 2019 is about 4.5%. So very steady, low unemployment rates. In the Houston area together, the unemployment rate was a combined 3.6%. Very low unemployment rate. We know that number's back to well over 8%, probably maybe even pushing 10% by the time that you'll listen to this report. We also had 2 of the strongest housing markets in the country. Houston started over 30,000 homes in the last 12 months, a change of almost 3,000. So some of the biggest changes in the country was occurring in Houston. Momentum had begun, unfortunately, before the pandemic hit. So we're going to be looking closely at what these impacts are on Alvin ISD as well as other school districts in the Houston area and with all our clients statewide. In Alvin ISD specifically, though, we just kind of focus on what's happened in the last year. There were approximately 3,211 home sales. This is based on deed transactions. So again, this is just basically deeds that were filed with the appraisal district. So based on deed transactions, new home sales have doubled since 2010. We had a fairly high number of REO sales through Alvin, and we're not sure what that's a real sign of. We're actually 2010, a new home was averaging about 215,000 in Alvin. That number is now well over 100,000 higher, sitting around 325,000 at the time of this report. Again, based on the sales through deed transactions. Existing homes haven't accelerated quite that same price. But they have gone up by almost 70,000, from 173,000 to 245,000 for existing homes. So strong acceleration in home prices, and I can't help it. I comment on every slide a little bit, I guess, but this is also could begin to flip, and you might begin to see a little bit more of a buyer's market as we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. If we look at quarterly starts and closings, this is important to see as well. 322 starts in Alvin ISD during the fourth quarter. That was the strongest fourth quarter that we've recorded in Alvin history. The closings, 380 closings. Now that was the strongest fourth quarter closings in Alvin ISD that we've recorded. Keep in mind, the closing is in occupied homes. What we're going to be looking at going forward is really not the first quarter. The first quarter just ended at the end of March, and we think the first quarter will likely be pretty strong because the trends were all there. Yet 322 starts in the fourth quarter. It's the second and third quarters of 2020 where we think the most impact is going to happen. We believe, we haven't completed research, that this could fall off by as much as 50% for each of those quarters, which would mean instead of adding 1,400 homes this year, Alvin may drop down to around 1,000 homes, similar to what you saw in 2015, 2016. If we look at, again, just the annual starts closings, your futures, you get 18,000 futures, 2,600 BDL, so that there's plenty of lots in the future for Alvin ISD when things get going again. A lot of economists believe by the fourth quarter we'll be rolling again. It's just going to really be a second and third quarter impact, and then we'll kind of get things on track again. I think the housing market will likely lead us out of this once again. Looking at this distribution by attendance zone, I think the best thing you can take with this chart is where you see colors, where you see most of the activity. No surprises. Pomona, Meridiana, and Sanchez lead the district. What you're seeing here is well over, I think the column I like to focus on is your inventory column. You had 790 homes in inventory during the fourth quarter. So those homes that were under construction, the 389, plus homes that were finished but vacant, which is another, looks like almost 400 homes were finished but vacant. Those are likely what those are going to try to sell off while they slow their start rates down with the pandemic. There were a couple areas where you saw, there's some new starts going on, but you see this chart, we've got activity all throughout Alvin ISD. The green that you see on this page is where we have active home building going on right now. The yellow areas are where we have future development. And the red outlines are where we have groundwork underway at the time of this report. So there were over 1,000 lots with groundwork. So that's, again, with those lots to be delivered on top of that 2,500 vacant developed lots that you see there on this chart. On the east side of the district, there's a couple of new projects, Forest Pines and Stone Creek. They're both awaiting city approval, so there hasn't any groundwork yet. These are the kind of projects that we're keeping an eye on. These are the kind of things that we think developers could take a pause on. Things could slow down, or they could deliver lots as money gets tight. These small projects like this could possibly be delayed for some time. So finally, your enrollment projections, we're forecasting next year to be 1,134 student growth. So just very similar to last year, putting just over 28,200 students. Within 5 years, if you add about 1,000 homes a year, within 5 years, we're looking at 32,429 students. And again, as things trail off a little bit towards the back end of this forecast, we're seeing strong growth. We think you'll be pushing about 36,500 students going forward. And really, to be honest, we don't believe that we're going to see a hiccup going in, with the COVID-19 pandemic. But then things should pick up, and that pace should be able to get back on that 1,000 student a year pace after that. This might be a blessing when you look at your elementary zones. To some extent, we've got a lot of red on there. We're still seeing some capacity challenges. Now, this does show these enrollment numbers that you're looking at do include the new boundaries that were adjusted for some balancing to kind of help some of these schools out with some of the higher numbers. And And again, with the junior high, I added the Kathy junior high numbers in the beginning of 21, 22, and that campus opens. It will kind of help out with relieving Manville, Rodeo Palms, getting those back down to a reasonable number. At the high school level, you've got strong, we know that there's a lot of students in your high schools. There simply are. So Shadow Creek is going to be balanced a little bit lower there with their capacity being lower. But all three campuses are going to be tight within about 3 years based on the capacity that we're seeing. So with that, I kind of wrap things up. Again, the influence of COVID-19 creates the need for an alternative 2020 forecast. So I hate to go through this whole forecast and say, but we're going to change it. But the truth is, this is a strong forecast. So we're still going to see strong growth in Alvin ISD. There just might be a little blip here in 2021 as we work our way out of this pandemic. So you still got strong growth in kindergarten last fall. That was historically high. That's going to work its way through, and that's what kind of is going to cause some ebbs and flows in your enrollment. We think you'll close. Well, we were hoping you'd close around 1,400 homes this year. That number may drop to as low as 1,000 homes. 24, 25 enrollment, we're forecasting 32,400 and pushing 36,500 in 10 years. So with that, I'm going to close. We'll stay in touch with your team there in Alvin and help them any way we can. Like I said, we'll bring back with your first quarter report kind of a COVID-19 update. In the meantime, if there's anything we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's always a pleasure. Stay healthy and well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky.
And so a lot of the report started out focused on 2019, and we know 2019 was a good year. It had more starts, more closings than ever before, and actually was a record year. The challenge is going to be going forward because the first quarter, although it probably will have some strong starts and closing stats similar to 2019, the second and the third quarter most definitely will not. We talked with the Association of General Contractors in Houston the other day. We had a meeting about the construction industry, and there is a lot of anxiety as to what the next 2 quarters are going to hold for not just commercial construction, but residential construction as well. We have a significant inventory of not only vacant developed lots, but actually starts and completed houses that are available to anybody who wants to buy in this market, because it will be a buyer's market if you can afford to buy and if you feel confident with your income stream. It will definitely be a buyer's market. He was talking about the strength and showing examples of how the value and the price point of houses has increased over the last 10 years, and I expect that to back up just a little bit. One of the challenges for the builders will be that they have invested and built and paid a premium for these houses, but the market won't sustain that. So again, it'll be a buyer's market, and they may be selling some of these houses that they have in inventory at cost. What that means for us is that a number of starts and number of closings is not the only indicator as to how many kids we may have. Because if we have a favorable market and people do have some cash available, they'll be swooping in here to buy houses in a buyer's market and bring in new families. The other thing that we've seen, and we know from history here in Alvin ISD, is that after we have a public hardship, most of the time Storm, Harvey, and Ike, and those types of things, that there may not even be any houses being sold. But nonetheless, family dynamics of families who are in stress for one reason or another because of financial situations move in together. And so we start having single family homes with multiple families living in them, and there was no sales of homes. There was no building and closing of new homes. It was just families moving in and merging together in a single household. And so going back to 2014 and 2015 that he was kind of using as an example, where instead of 1,400 new closings, that we were down in the neighborhood of 1,000, we still had pretty significant growth of kids. And so we probably may not have the total number of kids new coming into our district, but for a lot of districts around the greater Houston area and the state, we're still going to have our share of growth and new kids coming in. And So it'll be really interesting, and we'll look forward to their report in May at some point in time, because this is new to them, trying to create a report based upon a lot of unknowns and speculation, but they're trying to pull together as many authorities, as much information as they can, so that they can give us some type of peek or semblance or help us with the next school year and what the enrollment will be, and help us to forecast as best we can. And so Templeton demographics, they're not here, so they didn't put me up to this, but they really are and have been a great partner for Alvin ISD. And we do go and rely on them and call them up quite often, and they take a special interest in Alvin ISD. So when that report and additional information is available, we'll bring it. Did anybody have any other questions that maybe I can try to answer or take back to Templeton?
Thanks, Pat.
And the boundary adjustments did help. You heard him say that? I agree.
That concludes our presentation. So next we'll go into consent agenda items. Does anybody want to pull any one of those? All right, do I have a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E?
So moved.
By trustee Peterson, have a second by trustee Harris. All-
No, she,
any que-
Harris did the first.
Okay, I'm sorry, by trustee Harris, motion, a second by
Second.
trustee Peterson. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Next, we'll go into request to consider approval of donation and distribution of personal protective equipment to Brazoria County Health Department and medical professional practicing within Brazoria County in relation to the COVID-19. Carol?
Okay, so Board, the Texas Constitution permits the allocation of public funds and thus property to public and private entities in times of calamity. In this instance, with a statewide disaster declared due to COVID-19 pandemic, a school board may choose to donate PPE and related materials to medical facilities and first responders. COVID-19 has caused a shortage of PPE equipment. Specifically as it relates to Alvin ISD, the donation of current stock of PPE would support medical facilities within Brazoria County. The district would coordinate with the Brazoria County Health Department to donate some of the PPE supplies that we have available. So we're requesting if the board would approve us to do that.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the administration's recommendation to donate a portion of district-owned PPE equipment to public health officials under the guidance of the superintendent?
So moved.
Have a motion by trustee Winterstrom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by trustee Peterson. Any questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? Are you in favor or opposed?
Earl, I'm in favor, sorry.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. Next, we'll go to request to consider approval of order of postponing the May 2nd, 2020 Alvin ISD trustee election.
So due to COVID-19, Brazoria County has canceled the May 2nd joint election, the May 2nd, 2020 joint election. As authorized by the governor of the state of Texas, the election has been postponed until the general election day, November 3rd, 2020, and requires adoption of the resolution. Candidate filings submitted for the May 2nd, 2020 election will remain valid for the election held on the November date. The candidate filing period will not reopen for the November 3rd, 2020 election.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved.
A motion by trustee Harris. Oh, trustee
was me.
Peterson, sorry.
It's hard to
A
read.
second by trustee Harris. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Vivian? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have request to consider approval of calling trustee election and schedule election date for November 3rd,
Okay,
2020.
so now, Board, that you voted to postpone the May 2nd in correlation with the Brazoria County canceling it, we're requesting that Alvin ISD trustee election be November the 3rd, 2020. The 2020 Board of Trustee election date is Saturday, November the 3rd, 2020. Positions up for election are as follows. Position 6, currently held by Earl Humberg, and position 7, currently held by Vivian Scheibel.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve calling of an election for November 3rd, 2020 for trustee position 6 and 7, and approve the election date, times, and locations as presented?
So moved.
By trustee Winterstrom. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by trustee Peterson. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have question, consider a teacher appraisal calendar.
So, Board, this is our annual local teacher appraisal calendar and this one is for the 2020 school year, 2021 school year. So it's for next school year, and it's a local appraisal calendar which is included in the Texas Local Appraisal System within our District of Innovation Plan. Every year it's created and presented to you, the board, for information, but does not require board approval. However, we do like you to approve our appraisal calendar.
All right. Do we have a motion to review the appraisal calendar as presented?
So moved.
A motion by trustee Harris. We have a second by trustee Winterson. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have request to consider approval of appraisal plan change.
So due to the coronavirus pandemic, we're requesting a change to the Alvin ISD appraisal plan or appraisal calendar for 2019-2020 school year, this school year. We have our local teacher appraisal plan in the District of Innovation. So this plan then would allow for our administrators to waive those observations or walkthroughs that they were not able to complete due to us not physically being in school. So we're requesting a waiver for that, to waive the observations that have not been able to be completed due to us not physically being at our campuses.
All right, do we have a motion to approval be granted for requested plan change as presented?
So moved.
By trustee Peterson. Have a second? By trustee Winterson. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
Do we need to make up or at some point take care of those appraisals, or or do we just drop it for this year
So the
and
way,
start fresh?
so that's a great question. So it would be basically starting fresh. Most of our administrators had done their formal observations, like their 45 minutes to an hour observation. We request that those be completed prior to them recommending teacher contracts. So the majority of them have already been completed. So these were, the majority of them were like walkthroughs, follow-ups. But no, we would not go back, because next year would be a new year and a new appraisal calendar. So we would not go back and make those up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions
I
or
have a
comments?
question also.
Okay.
Carol, are there observations currently going on for the online instruction?
So there's monitoring going on. The administrators on each campus regularly check their lesson plans, and they have faculty meetings and Google Hangouts, and they have team meetings and PLC meetings. And so those types of things are happening. But as far as a formal observation through our observation system, which gets stored in Aware, and I think it's Strive. It's Eduphoria is the main, but those are not occurring. This would waive that.
Any other
Okay,
questions
thank
or
you.
comments? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have request to consider waivers resolution request.
Okay, so board, this is due to the coronavirus pandemic, many waivers are being offered through TEA, and they may be requested at the time. The commissioner daily comes up with other waivers that the district is eligible to apply for, such as the attendance waiver for funding, and then we have several codings of how we code our students for attendance during that time. But to ease the transition, and instead of creating multiple resolutions every time, we're asking that this resolution that's recommended by TASB, which was created and attached, cover any future requests for waivers due to the pandemic. So it would be only waivers related to this school year that are due to the pandemic. There might be some in the fall that are due to the pandemic, but of course we would keep the board informed if we were applying for any waivers. But what this would do was give the authority to the superintendent to pursue any necessary and available waivers that we're eligible for through TEA without further action of the board. And in the event other waivers are needed, then the superintendent is authorized to submit those waivers.
All right, then do we have a motion for approval be granted for requested resolution on the waivers?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Harris. We have a second. By trustee Winterstrom. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. Carol, I'm assuming that one of these waivers has to do with pre-K. And so I just was wondering if this is appropriate for this forum. I think it is. Do these waivers address pre-K, and how are we addressing that?
So I believe previously the board approved a waiver for pre-K. We did a 3-year waiver because they required us to do it for the 1920 school year, even though the waiver was not available until January, and I believe was due in March. I want to say y'all may have approved that in January or February at the board meeting. And then, of course, we were waiving for the next 2 years, even though we're going to offer full-day pre-K at our most needed schools. We're trying to see, due to space, what we can accommodate. So the majority or all of our Title I schools and schools with bilingual will offer full-day pre-K. So we'll roll that out and then see what spaces we have available once all the boundary changes are made, if we can continue the following year to add full-day pre-K. So that waiver's already been submitted.
Okay, so I'm wondering if the previous waiver we requested, if this will add on to it, or do you feel like we're still on track? Or is there no way of knowing that yet?
This way, there's not another pre-K waiver out there in relation to coronavirus or COVID-19 to the pandemic. Okay. It's just the initial pre-K waiver.
Got it. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we'll have request to consider approval of employment personnel.
So we have 2 openings for LSSPs, and these are recommendations for hire for the board's consideration.
Do we have a motion of approval be granted for requested personnel items as presented?
So moved.
By trustee Peterson. Have a second. By trustee Winterson. Any questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have request to consider approval of administrative appointment.
So board, this is a request to replace a position due to a resignation. And the recommendation for that I'm bringing to the board is for Director of Curriculum, and the recommendation would be Ms. Fulvia Shaw. Fulvia currently serves Alvin ISD as principal of Red Duke Elementary. Previously, she served as principal of E.C. Mason and assistant principal at Mary Merritt, Don Jeter, and Alvin High School. She's also served as summer school principal. She has 28 years of experience as an educator in Texas public schools. The committee's confident that Ms. Shaw is the best candidate for this position of Director of Curriculum. So we're recommending or asking for board consideration for Ms. Shaw to be Director of Curriculum.
Very good. All right, do we have a motion to approval be granted for Fulvia Shaw as Director of Curriculum? Have a motion by trustee Winterstrom. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by trustee Harris. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have request to consider approval to extend term, renew probationary, terminate and end of probationary professional contracts.
So board, you have the list of recommendations to extend the term, renew their term, or renew their probationary contracts for current teachers, is what is brought before you tonight. By Texas Education Code, we're required to notify or offer a contract 10 days prior to the last day of instruction, but we always bring it in April to you, and that gives our HR department time to get contracts out. We do all of those electronically now, and so we're asking consideration for contract recommendations for your approval this evening for our teaching staff.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve professional contract recommendations as presented?
So moved.
One by trustee Harris. Do we have a second?
Second.
By trustee Winterstrom. Any questions or comments? I have a comment. I'm gonna tell you now, I'm gonna abstain from this because I have family members that are on this, so. So we have, all in favor? All opposed? And I abstain. Motion carries 6-1 with one abstain. We will now go into executive session. This board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Government Code 551072. Discuss purchase, land, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Next on the agenda is, need a motion, excuse me. Yeah, we have a motion to approve the purchase of real property and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute a final sale, purchase agreement, and contract for due diligence, professional services related to the same as discussed in closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by trustee Harris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Winterstrom. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have, does anybody have any future agenda items?
Do we need to
got a
vote
question.
separately?
On these separately, these two different.
He didn't
Oh, we
have,
were?
he didn't have it.
Yeah, I had queued them up as separate in the event that you were in agreement with one but not the other. And so it's a little more descriptive. I think that, Earl, I think I would appreciate if you would
Okay.
read and put the acreage in there so that accountability for us all gives a little bit more definition.
He put the acreage,
Okay.
didn't he?
Yeah, down on the
Acreage is there,
Yeah,
yes.
but the first motion he read was for plus or minus 17 acres.
Okay.
Okay,
and
so
then-
you did
Okay.
this
Made
one.
the motion?
I made-
Cheryl.
Cheryl made the motion, I
And
seconded.
You've already
Tiffany
done,
second.
done
So
the
he-
17.
Y'all did the plus
did the
or minus
17.
17, yes.
Now we need the
do
55.
55.
Okay.
This
At
one's,
17, at a cost of not to exceed $3 per square foot.
do you want to say not to exceed?
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know that we need,
we have to,
I think we
Get
just
rid of
say
that,
as
'cause
discussed
we've
in
already
closed
voted.
session.
But
Wait.
they said that you did say the acreage in first.
But we didn't say how much per square foot.
I don't think we have to, because he
Leave
said
it on
as
the form.
discussed in closed
Right.
session.
Discussed in closed session.
Yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So where,
So read the second one
So we've already taken a vote. That one's done.
on the 55 acres.
okay, so now do we have a motion to approve the purchase of plus or minus 55 acres at $2.80 a square foot, real property in Alvin ISD, Missouri County, Texas. Cost is discussed in closed session and authorize the superintendent or her designee to contract for due diligence, professional service, and negotiate and execute a final sale and purchase agreement related to the same as discussed in closed session.
So moved.
By trustee Peterson, a second by trustee Winterstrom. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. So we will go now to anybody have any future agenda items? In that case then, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Have a second by trustee Winterstrom. Questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for bearing with us on the presentation, doing that remote.